What's up, Bucketheads? It's Joe with at CBB DFS. I am back again. I was going to do this solo, but at the last minute, I told James, I was like, you got to come on with me. And after he finished up some late night work, I was able to talk him into it, which is fantastic because even though I got to give him a disclaimer, I haven't given him a chance to fully dive in and do the research. I wanted to bring in his ACC expertise because there's a lot of ACC games on this slate. So James, how we doing? Welcome to your first venture into the CBB DFS YouTube space.
Looking great. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Like literally looking great. We're looking pretty sharp.
Yeah, not too bad on a Friday night.
We're going to try to keep our beverages out of the shots so we can keep a nice rating on adult and kids rating for whoever wants to see it. I know the youngsters are all about the CBB DFS these days. I will tell you though, Byrd would have joined us, but tomorrow he has a birthday coming up. So his family had a lot of birthday surprises. So when he watches this as he's building his slates in the morning, happy birthday, Birdie. And
happy birthday, Byrd.
I know you Bucketheads are wishing him a happy birthday from afar. All right. Well, tomorrow we got a 4-game slate. It starts early at 10 a.m. There's a variety of slates. And right now, college football is still king. So instead of doing a full-blown pod that we would normally release on a Friday, James and I just wanted to kind of go through our PowerPoint and pull out some plays we like, talk a little bit about the games. We'll move through this pretty quickly, but hopefully it gives you something for you guys when you wake up wanting to get things started. You ready to get going, James?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, just like our podcast, we have the 4 games broken down into 3 categories. Don't go overboard. That's the Cincinnati, Tennessee game. The over-under there is 133. The tread water section, you like how I did the no diving logo there, James?
That's really nice.
I mean, you can still swim. You just can't dive in.
Exactly.
That's Florida and Florida State. The over-under there's 145. I already like the over there. And then Notre Dame, Kentucky, 2 teams that desperately need a win, is at 144. And then the last game, the last tip on this small slate is Syracuse, Boston College, which is surprisingly our largest over-under at 147. Diving in is permitted on that one. James, not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. Like you said, the Syracuse one, a little bit surprising maybe to some folks that maybe would have expected. Boston College hasn't been that great last few years. Syracuse maybe, known a little bit as a stingy defensive team. But both of
now's the time in the ACC, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Duke's
right.
down. We don't really know what North Carolina is. Virginia doesn't look all powerful. I mean, I think it's open.
Yeah, I think it's open too. Even Florida State we'll talk about later, but they're still kind of trying to figure it out as well. Sure. They definitely got some talent there, but I don't think there's really a clear favorite right now.
I agree with you. Well, let's get started. Our first game, again, this is the one that we're gonna take it easy with this one, but it's Cincinnati at number 12, Tennessee. Cincinnati has started the year 2-1. Their only loss was to a pretty good Xavier team. They're playing pretty good defense, as Cincinnati normally does, and they've been really strong up front. You can see they're 13th in offensive rebound percentage allowed at 18.1 and 25th in their 2-point field goal shots. So their big men and shots inside the perimeter are going in at a really nice rate at 58%, which is pretty good through 3 games. On the flip side of this, we have Tennessee. Tennessee's only got 1 game under our belt, so we're still learning a lot about them. The 1 game that they had was a pretty tight game against Colorado. So 4 guys played 30+ minutes, and really the young guns that they brought in that everyone was so hyped on, Keon Johnson and Jaden Springer, neither of them got a lot of PT in that. So how we have this format broken down is we're going to talk about Cincinnati, and then we're going to talk about Tennessee, take a look at some stats and some prices. I'll ask James a couple questions, but before I move on to Cincinnati first, any thoughts on this first one, James?
Yeah, coming into the year, Tennessee was really known to be had the potential to be a really good defensive team this year. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of length, a lot of athleticism, and so far that's the case, right? They held Colorado to 47 points.
Yep.
Cincinnati traditionally, granted they got coaching change that happened last year,
sure.
But not really known to be a kind of a high profile offensive team. So we get the low over under here. So it's definitely something you want to keep in mind if you're looking at Cincinnati guys. Probably only a couple guys there that might make sense to do, if any.
Well, let's take a look at Cincinnati here. As you can see, Keith Williams is their highest priced player at 7,100. He's got the usage right now of 34%, which you definitely look for that, and a shot rate of 33%. Those are excellent numbers, and the minutes are pretty safe at 30 minutes. I think this is the first time since he's been on a slate this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. So we don't know too much about him from a betting standpoint. It's really what we've read and what we've researched over these last couple of games. And James, anybody on here jump out besides that gaudy usage of Keith Williams?
David DeJulius is a name I recognize covering Big Ten basketball. He played for Michigan last year.
Yeah.
You might remember he was kind of a bench guy, role player, energy guy, come off the bench. He had a couple big games. I think one of them was against Nebraska last year when they had some injuries and stuff. But
yeah, I don't know if we're cutting it off with our beautiful faces, but the last column there is assists per game, and he's at 5. So he looks like he's been their primary distributor.
Yep, exactly right.
And Vogt's a name we know from last year, right?
Yep.
And not super offensively inclined, but you would expect the rebounding to come up to 4.3. In this pace, though, I'm probably not looking too deep into these teams.
Yeah, that's the thing, really. I mean, it's not even going to be a lot of possessions in this game. So even guys that you look at that, might be decent rebounders might not get a lot of opportunities. So, I think Keith Williams, a guy you can look at, maybe DeJulius, that can kind of fill it out a little bit.
Sure. Micah Adams Woods is a talented player they liked a lot. He's getting a ton of minutes, but overall, I think if you're not going with Keith Williams, you're probably staying off this one until we learn a little bit more, see him a couple more times. Is that fair to say?
I think so, yeah.
Looking at Tennessee, again, a little bit of an unknown, only one game under their belt. We got the Jaden Springer at 4,600. That looks awesome. You got Keon Johnson at 3,800. That looks awesome. But then you see that minutes column where they played 13 and 9 minutes. And what are you going to do? Whereas the names we know from last year, Josiah Jordan-James, Ives Pons, Vescovi, these are all guys who played 30 minutes. Victor Bailey Jr. is in the mix. And then you got Fulkerson, who was kind of limited from a minutes perspective, but man, did he get up all the shots in that first one, scoring 11 points for them.
Yeah, he can produce, and he's the guy that's just he's gonna fire away this year. And
I like the spot for him, especially against a team that's supposed to be pretty strong up front. Oh, you guys can see my air quotes. I normally do them on the podcast, and no one can see them, so if Cincinnati is supposedly so great up front, I like this to be a game where Fulkerson kind of mans up and maybe even pushes a double-double here at 6,300. I'm going to try to get him in my lineups.
Yeah, one thing to note here too, Cincinnati has gotten exposed a little bit on the interior. They're giving up 52.7% in the 2-point, inside 3-point.
Yep. Yeah, and
but anyway.
Go ahead.
So if you're looking across the board here, see where you got an advantage. Maybe a guy like Fulkerson, and maybe even Yves Pons. Possibly.
Oh yeah.
He feels a little overpriced to me, but he's a big
He
guard.
is.
They got him listed as a forward, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a name for them, and that's a name we all know. I'd play you don't want to stack this game and go crazy, so I'm looking more at Fulkerson at 63 over Pons, just because Fulkerson's a way better offensive player.
Absolutely, yeah.
But Pons is electric defensively. You see his 10 rebounds that he got in the opener. He also led the SEC in block shots last year as a kid who's 6'7". So he does a lot of things for that team. I'm a big fan of the sophomore Josiah Jordan-James. He's incredible. Fills the stat lines up across the board. I'm not of these guys. I'm not going to go crazy on this game. Again, Fulkerson's my guy here, but I think the pricing's pretty fair if you got a good feeling about someone else.
Yeah, I think so. And the young guys, it's only a matter of time, right? I mean, 5-star talent. They're both of those guys they're going to play at some point. And so, you can take a shot with them when they're really cheap.
And one column I want to point out to the people who are watching is that fantasy points per minutes. And you look at Jaden Springer, who only got 9 minutes, but got 1.17 points per minute over that time frame. That means he got the ball up, he got his touches in. You look at the usage for Keon Johnson, who got 13 minutes, 35% usage. When he was in the game, he had the ball in his hands and was ending possessions. So if they get up to 20 minutes, which they could if Tennessee stretches this one out and is a really good team, which we think they are, then these guys get 20 minutes. All of a sudden, Jaden Springer's 10 fantasy points becomes 22, 23. And now you're talking about 5X for $4,500, and that's a pretty good play. Most of us are pretty conservative and we'll want to see it once before we put them in our lineups. But if you're in that GPP and you need a dart, or if you have a $4,600 hole, stick them in. It's worth a shot, right?
Yep. All
right, let's flip on to the next game. That's Florida and Florida State. Fun fact here, I noticed when researching this is Florida's lost 6 straight to Florida State, dating back to 2014.
Oh, wow.
This game is at FSU. They're 3-point favorites. I don't really have a gambling feel on this one yet, but Florida has started off the season pretty well. They're 3-0 under Mike White. They're playing a little bit faster as he promised and said they would. They're 20th in the length of time for their offensive possessions, averaging 14.6. And with Florida, what we're talking about is our known players and our unknown players. That's what I mean by that last bullet there. You're talking about the guys we know like Keontae Johnson, and then the guys we're going to get to know this year like Trey Mann. So we'll talk about them when we get to Florida's screen a little bit more. And then for Florida State, James, you are an ACC guy. Confirm my notes on here. They're 2-0 coming off that big win over Indiana. Really the lone bright spot in the ACC throughout the Big Ten ACC Challenge. That series was kind of handled by the Big Ten. Fun fact alert. They're the longest and tallest team in the NCAA, averaging 79.6 inches. So that means their average roster height is 6'6", which is kind of nice to know, but it's Florida State. So they got to be top 10 every year. This year, they're officially first. They're elite defensively per the norm under Leonard Hamilton. And with this slate, I think America is going to get to know Scotty Barnes a little bit better. Did I miss anything there, James, from the FSU side of things?
I don't think so. Scotty Barnes is the one that hit the game winner in overtime against Indiana. I thought that Indiana would struggle a little bit more against Florida State, particularly Jackson Davis. That wasn't the case. He had a monster game. So I think maybe the jury's out a little bit on how good defensively they are right now. I think they will be a great defensive team. But we'll see what they do tomorrow.
That's fair.
Big test.
That's fair. That's why I brought you on. All right, Florida. Let's take a look at them. First and foremost, Keontae Johnson sitting there at 7,800. He's averaging 31.5 fantasy points per game, 1.25 fantasy points per minute. He's only playing 25 minutes a game, but you can throw that out the window if it's going to be a tight game. He's averaging close to 20 points, pulling down 6 boards. Keontae Johnson is someone that's very much on my radar.
Absolutely.
Whenever he's on the slate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a pretty good price. I think
I was surprised he wasn't the price king, just looking at the slate when I opened it up. But we'll talk about him in a little bit. Scotty Lewis is at 6,800. He's next on the list. Great player. But as you can see, his shot rate is only 11.9%. He's a tremendous defensive player. He's going to develop into probably a very good NBA player, but it's just not offensively inclined or involved enough right now to be considered for me at that price. Trey Mann, that's the guy I want everyone to get on. He was 4,200 or 4,300 last time he was on the slate, and he had 7 or 8X or something like that. Now DK is starting to realize his potential. I still think he's underpriced at 5,900 because he's running the show for that team, and that usage and shot rate are indicative of him running the show. He's playing with a lot of confidence. He's shooting the ball well, averaging 15 a game. Trey Mann is someone that I definitely like as well.
Yeah, Florida State right now is giving up 36% from the 3-point line. So that's an area of weakness so far.
Yep. And you can't talk about Florida and threes without mentioning Noah Locke too, because he's their sharpshooter. And at 4,700, this is a guy who last year was normally around 5'5", 6. So I think you're getting a little value with Noah Locke. He's going to shoot it from deep, and he's gotten hot many times. Appleby is the transfer they like. I'd still like to see a little bit more consistency out of him, but he's been a nice fit for this team. Down low, it's a little bit of a mess. They don't really have that true big. Everyone was thinking Omar Payne would take that role and kind of run with it, but he really hasn't. So that's still kind of a work in progress as they try to figure out who their 5 is when they need to match up against these bigger teams. So maybe it's a good spot for Omar Payne to get extended run, and maybe this is where he steps out, or will it be more of Colin Castleton, who's had a little more success early, but just isn't as talented as Payne, in my opinion. I think we're good on Florida there, though. Let's flip over to Florida State.
All right.
So Florida State, James, just looking up and down their metrics so far, what do you see for Florida State here that stands out? Just 2 games to sample from.
Yeah, kind of tough right now. MJ Walker is kind of the guy for them. You can see he played the most minutes. The shot rate for him is pretty low, I think, right now. He's a former 5-star player. He's been there a long time, but he's always been in that kind of backup role. But he's a guy that can break out. He's a guy, even with all the other talent they've had on the teams in the past, he'll explode for a 30-point game. So I mean, he's capable. But your hope this year, where he's sort of the top scoring option, or going into the year anyway, we'll see.
For now.
But you like to see some more consistency, and so we'll see. I think jury's still out on him a little bit. Maybe somebody you could fade and make him show it to you.
Yeah, 6,300, probably, in my opinion, maybe more of a cash play, unless you think he's going to hit that breakout. But I mean, if you're looking for the GPP play, it's Scotty Barnes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it really is just a matter of time before he really takes over the team, and maybe that's already happened.
Yeah, I mean, 5,800. That seems like a kind of a must play there. You can see the 8.5 rebounds a game, the excellent usage, or the 8.5 points and 5 rebounds and 5.5 assists. He's doing a little bit of everything. You see the usage and shot share. Scotty Barnes is someone that I'll definitely have in my lineups. Any thoughts on Balsa? I don't know much about him. Is he new, or was he kind of a off and on guy last year? You never know with their bigs. They tend to turn them over pretty frequently.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem, right? I mean, Balsa, he was there last year. He was kind of in the fold. It's definitely behind the couple that they had then, but you don't know how much time they're going to get. I mean, he's getting right under 20 minutes, it looks like. Right now.
19.5.
Yeah. And so even though he's sort of the starter and the main big, he's still not getting enough minutes really to make him super palatable. I think
that makes a ton of sense. And then before we move on, Gray is someone I played a lot last year, because I thought last year was the year he was going to break out, and he just kind of fell flat. He just was kind of a guy. He never took that next step to being, an elder statesman, physical presence that I thought he was going to be. And it doesn't seem like he's really done that yet this year, but the season is still young.
And, you talk about cash plays. He probably sits a little bit better as a cash play. Got a nice assist rate. He can get some blocks and steals, probably the best defender on the team. So, he's a guy you could look at in cash, but, GPP, I would say, is much riskier.
It's Barnes and GPP all the way.
Absolutely right. Yep.
All right, we've got 2 more. Let's get on to 2 teams that desperately need to win. Talking about Notre Dame and Kentucky. Notre Dame is off to a 1-2 start. They had their 2 losses are to Michigan State and Ohio State, so you can't say they've been horrible losses by any standard. By any state in the means. It's your standard Irish team. They shoot a lot of threes and they take care of the basketball. But man, do they really miss John Mooney from last year? That really was evident when you saw their rebounding rates. They're just getting slaughtered on the glass this year. Mm-hmm. So Notre Dame, they need a win here bad. But I think Kentucky might need one a little bit more. I did put a note in here. I haven't heard Coach Cal say anything about postponing the season after a rough start. That was my little Coach K jab. What do you think about that, James?
That's funny. It's funny to me.
You're a funny guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, even though he has a lot of freshmen that are talented and the team has been struggling, he has not mentioned potentially delaying the season. But the Wildcats are 1-3. They just got crushed by Georgia Tech, really outfoxed. They've been super careless with the basketball. They're 281st in turnover percentage right now, and they're only shooting about 26% from 3. So We got some stuff to figure out in Kentucky, but Cal normally does that by the time the season corrects itself. But James, let's look at Notre Dame. I got him up on the screen here. I thought I had to do a double take here, but is Notre Dame really this thin? Is this really all their guys that are getting significant minutes and contributing?
Yeah, it really is, and they tend to be a little thin anyway. But this is unprecedented. It really looks like they have a thin roster in general. But yeah, there's 6 guys that are really getting the vast majority of the minutes, which is awesome, right? I mean, that's the best for Buckethead. So that's definitely good to know there.
You look at the minutes, 37.7, 35.7, 38.7, 27.3, 37. That's their starting 5 that are playing the whole game. They're all priced pretty fairly. Prentice Hub has been off to a hot start, James, and he's actually the price king on the slate tonight at 8,300. Tell us a little bit about Prentice Hub.
Yeah, he's great. He's been there a couple of years. They've been developing him. He's been good for a while. I think they just had so many other pieces around him that were focal points like Mooney. And so he never was really the top scoring option. He would have breakout games occasionally. That's changed. He's really taken the team over this year, and he's it. He's the guy.
So taking a look at the rest of the guys here, you see some gaudy rebounding numbers, 9-7, 7-0, 7-7. A lot of that is by default because there's no one else there. But that's a nice ancillary stat production that you're getting from some of these other guys like Lazuski, Goodwin, and Durham, Durham was a pretty good post player and has shown flashes in the past too.
Yeah, Durham is a good post player, and he's a guy that can grab a couple blocks too. I mean, you don't want to play that a lot of times, but when you see an advantage there, 2 or 3 blocks, steal, those can add up. So, but he's a guy that's 8% block percentage, so he can go in and get it. That's what he's kind of known for.
And Cormac Ryan, is he the Stanford guy?
He is from Stanford, yeah, kind of their sharpshooter. He's 7 for 17 this year already, so he can get him up.
Yeah, I remember him over there. Now he sat out last year, didn't he?
He did. He had a sit out year last year. Yeah.
Then he's like, I'm a sharpshooter. I should go to Notre Dame. That's what sharpshooters do.
That's right.
All right. Let's flip over to Kentucky, and this is in my SEC wheelhouse. Oh, man, their highest player is 6,800. It's Brandon Boston, the fabulous freshman. He is leading the team in shot rate. His usage is great at 25%. He's playing over 30 minutes a game. He's pulling down rebounds. Brandon Boston is fine for me in GPP, especially in this game that I think is going to be a little pacier. And I don't know who really can check him athletically on the wing for that Notre Dame team. So I have no issues with Brandon Boston. Isaiah Jackson's really been the lone bright spot, I'd say, so far for Kentucky. His energy has been awesome. He's been rebounding and he's earning more and more minutes each game. So Isaiah Jackson is starting to get priced up to the energy level and the importance he is for that team at 6,800. He doesn't score a ton, but I think he still should be a fine cash play. But I don't think he's going to be an offensive force anytime soon. I'll go to 2 more, and then James, I'll ask for your take. But Olivier Sarr, he's from the ACC neck of the woods, and he hasn't been the dominant factor we were all kind of expecting for UK.
Yeah, I agree. He was a guy that I really liked. 7-footer. Had some athleticism, could do some things, skilled. And we were all expecting pretty big things from him, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. And then Terrence Clark, another 5-star freshman. He's again playing all the minutes, just not shooting the ball well, but at 5,700, I think he's live in GPPs. Davion Mintz, you'll remember that name. He's a Creighton transfer. Really, the team runs better when he is on the floor, but every minute he's on the floor, that's minutes that aren't going to Askew, who's another stud freshman who has really kind of struggled. But looking at Askew down there, he's at 3,700. He's playing 28 minutes a game, and he's a 5-star recruit. That, what am I missing there? I mean, I know he's not playing well, but 30 minutes, 5-star freshman, 3,700. I'm normally a go on those.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember about this game really is Notre Dame's bad defensively.
Yeah.
And again, very thin, right? And so they gave up, Ohio State gave them 90.
Yeah. And that's
Ohio
not a
State's
juggernaut offensively.
oh, no, very bad Detroit team this year, gave them 70. So they're not good defensively, and I think this will be the kind of game that really jumpstarts Kentucky a little bit. And
Yeah, I
I
like
could
that.
see I could see some of these guys get real loose.
I think that's a good take. And Keon Brooks is priced at 4,400, but he hasn't played yet this year. I don't think he's expected to play Saturday. We'll watch the Twitter machine and let you know. You would think he would come in as a veteran sophomore, but we'll keep an eye on that. But really, my takeaways from this one is ask you got to like, even though Mintz is playing a little bit better, Brandon Boston seems good. Isaiah Jackson in cash. I want to play Sar and I want to catch that breakout game when he has it, but I think I'm 0 for 2 on him already. So I'm probably off Sar again.
Yeah, I would say that's the one strength maybe that they have. Durham is a really good defender inside. So I think he's a decent matchup. So if you were, I would give him one more game maybe, but I think the guards on the Kentucky side are probably in for a big game.
Awesome. Our last game on the slate here. This is surprisingly the 147 over under. This is the one we want to dive in on, the one we want to look for as many plays as possible. It's Syracuse, who's favored heading to Boston College. The Orange has won the last 4 meetings and 10 of the last 12. We'll keep an eye on Buddy Boeheim's status. James, I don't know if you've seen anything on that. But it's Syracuse, so we're going to be seeing the classic 2-3 zone. So far, it's been pretty good so far by the metrics. I know Jim Boeheim called him out for having a lack of intensity on defense this week, but from the metric standpoints, the zone's been pretty good. But Cuse isn't all that deep. They run pretty much their starting group. Obviously, Buddy missing hurts that, but they're 295th in bench minutes that far. Boston College, this is their 5th game. They're 1-4, but this team feels like they've been on a ton of slates this year. So we know a lot about BC. And they've seen some top tier opponents. It's not like they've played slouches out there or, the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, Boston, Merrimack, Goodwill Hunting School, whatever. They've played every game against teams that are in KenPom's top 83 that they've played. So they've faced good competitions. They're not going to shy away from this one. It's weird to think of Boston College as a team that plays with tempo, but they're 61st in tempo right now. And defensively, they've been shutting people. They haven't been shutting people down in the interior. That's really been kind of their Achilles heel, as opponents have been shooting close to 60% from inside the arc on them. If they can tighten up that D, maybe they can give Syracuse a game. James, any other bullets you would add to this one?
Yeah, I think that was a good point on the competition. The worst team that they played this year so far is Rhode Island with Fats Russell, if you guys remember him. And they won that game.
Yep.
Just barely. But a lot of really tough competition. Went to overtime with Minnesota here last game. So I think they're better than definitely the record shows, and they do have some players.
Yeah, they do. And I don't hate that. I mean, I'm not going to play the over or anything like that, but I like that the game is a tight line. I think the game is going to be competitive and go back and forth. And BC does have some shooters, which we'll talk about in a bit, and they can stretch the zone. So without further ado, why don't we get into Syracuse? Again, I haven't done my homework. I apologize on Buddy. I wasn't an illness or COVID, his absence. If not, we can edit it. So he's only played 1 game this year, but he had all the usage, all the shot rate. We'll do our due diligence in the morning if we don't know anything further on him. In his absence, Alan Griffin stepped up the last 3 games. He's been a nice find, the transfer from Illinois, so near and dear to James's heart. What's your take on Alan Griffin so far? Did you think he was this big of a star, or is that why he left? Because he was going to get phased out?
No, I don't think that's why he left, but I think we liked him. At Illinois, we really liked him. He was an energy guy off the bench, really good shooter. He was the best shooter on Illinois last year, and his kind of calling card was he's an excellent wing rebounder for his size. As you can see there, he's got seven boards a game there. So he's an asset on that team in the zone. So he's, I'm not really surprised that he's having success already.
Awesome. And the numbers look great. 16.8 and 7. That for 7,400. I mean, I think that's a pretty live play. Quincy Guerrier, he's at 7,200. He's playing 31 minutes and pulling down close to 10 rebounds a game, almost averaging a double-double. Not a big usage or shot guy, but someone who's always around the ball, it seems like.
Yeah. He's a guy that I think was people were sort of waiting for him to really kind of develop, and he seems to be emerging.
Seems to be doing it, yeah. And then going back to last year, I never got Merrick right. Never got him right. So I fade him due to a personal bias almost automatically. But he is playing well this year. He is getting significant minutes. We mentioned that they're kind of a thin bench. What's your thoughts on Merrick Dolias?
I would agree with you, Joe. He's hard to predict. I never seemed to got him right last year either. But he can just totally go off. I mean, he can just totally throw a monster game up, and he can do it across the board too. He can grab 5 steals. He can get 9 assists, and so those things stack up pretty well. It's hard to predict when it's going to come. Yeah, is the only bad part. But yeah, he's a guy you definitely, I think, always have to consider for GPP.
Right. And Richmond's been getting a little uptick in minutes because Sibby's been out. We'll check on his status as well. Both are probably priced a little too much for my liking, but right below them, I am very much interested in Joseph Girard III, 5,400. This guy can shoot it. He can hand out assists. I really like. What am I missing? Why is he so cheap, James? Or is this just a current form pricing right now in him?
I think it is more of a current form pricing. He's had some games where he hasn't shot particularly well. Had a game, the first game of the year, went 0 for 5 from 2 from 9 from 3.
Yeah.
And one from 6 from 3 in a couple games since then too. So
he's a better shooter.
I think that's really what you're seeing. He's a better shooter than that. And he'll come around. Yeah.
Yeah. And the minutes are there. The minutes are safe. You're getting over 20% usage, over 20% shot rate. I'm okay with Joseph Girard in all formats, especially I think he'd be a nice GPP play for you, but I also think he'll be kind of a trendy pick as well, just because we know that name from last year. A lot of bucketheads will get on Girard.
And we're talking about him.
And when this gets 17 views tomorrow.
Right.
No, actually, you'd be surprised at the number we've been getting on those. The first one that we didn't promote at all. I just put it out as a practice. Ended up getting something like 50 some views and comments on it. It was awesome. So, hey, this is what the bucketheads want. This is what we're giving them, right?
That's right.
Let's not get sidetracked though. We got to talk about Boston College. We love BC. Yep. Well, I kind of like BC, mainly because we've seen them a bunch. We got a pretty good feel for this team. I think Stephon Mitchell is one of my favorite players this year, even though he hasn't played that great. He rebounds, he assists, he scores a little bit. I think his best basketball is yet to come in the ACC. He was much better statistically last year. Am I right, James? And at 6,600, I'm good with Stephon Mitchell this year or tomorrow. Today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of this team, right? You go down through there and you're like, oh, this Boston College, same old, they suck. And you go down and look through it, and it's like, oh, Tabs, I remember that guy. He's awesome. He's Mitchell's good, awesome. Jay Heath's good. So they've got players for sure. Yeah, there's definite options here.
Yeah, you mentioned Tabs. Tabs was hurt. He got hurt like a couple games in last year, and then he's just been awesome since he's been back, and he was awesome before he got hurt. And you see the 17 points a game, you see the 7,300 price point. I like that. When you're talking about the highest over under on the slate, getting the best player from the dog team that's on a 3-point line, I don't have any problems paying 7,300 for that. And if you tell me he's going to have 29% usage and a 32% shot rate, I mean, all the arrows are blinking and pointing at Tabs. Play this guy. So Tab's probably in my lineup. I like stacking him with Mitchell because those are the two main guys. Heath tends to go crazy sometimes in a good way, and can win you a GPP or sometimes bury you in a GPP. He's a little more up and down, but I'm okay with going with 4 guys from this game, maybe taking Tabs and Mitchell, then coming back on the Syracuse side with Girard and one of their main guys.
Yeah, and maybe worth noting here too, Jay Heath is taking 27 threes. He leads the team in three-point second, right behind Tabs, it looks like. Not shooting particularly well yet, but we know that Syracuse sort of goads you into shooting threes with that zone. And so it's possible one of those guards could get hot. It tends to happen. teams that play Syracuse. So,
hey James, I don't know if you have it up, but between Kaepernick and Ashton Langford, is one of the two more of the shooter?
Let me see.
If you don't have it up, that's all right.
Ashton Langford and who's the other one?
Karnick.
And Karnick. Yeah, probably Ashton Langford looks like
Karnick's a big. I'm sorry. I thought he had a G tag.
Yeah, Ashton Langford not really shooting very great right now. He's only 3 for 16 from 3. So still trying to figure it out, it looks like. But yeah, he can get some assists though and get to the line.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
So our highest over under the game, we're okay with picking a couple guys on each side and getting lots of exposure to this one. That actually concludes our 4 games. Let us know what you think, guys. This is YouTube. This is new to us. Put a comment below. Send us a tweet. You can follow us on Twitter at CBB_DFS. You can listen anywhere our podcasts are found. We typically release those on Saturdays, Friday night, Saturday mornings. But with this smaller slate and college football very much in full swing, we thought we'd go this route this week. And then we can find us on the web at cbb-dfs.com. James, I appreciate you so much for coming on and talking to the Bucketheads with me.
Maybe I'll prepare next time.
No, I kind of like the raw, vivid, unfiltered,
visceral,
just visceral.
That's right.
I thought it was great though. You know your ACC, and that was the bulk of this. That was the bulk of this conversation. So honestly, thank you so much for coming on and stepping away. Appreciate it. Tomorrow, all we got to do is win all the money, right, Bucketheads?
That's right.
James, any parting words?
Good luck, everybody. Let's win it.